We're going to start off with a poem. I am trained as a historian, and one of my favorite places to be is in an archive and reading that primary material, the old diaries, the old letters from decades and even hundreds of years ago. And this is a poem that came out of the letters of a woman named Abigail Malik that she wrote back to her family in the States in 1840 when she reached the Oregon Territory. And I just love those old letters and diaries with their inconsistent spelling, their inconsistent capitalization, the way that people used words and language. And, you know, you can be in an archive reading along and you receive these writings just as if they were delivered to you. And you think of a letter in those days that took so long to cross the country, and you might get one a year after somebody had left to go west. And everything in this poem came out of her letters. In a way, it sort of found poetry. I've rearranged things, but the way that she used language, the repetition that is in this poem, this all came directly out of her letters, including the title, My Oh Dear Children, I Wish You Were Here. I never shall see any of you anymore, and you never shall see Hiram anymore. He went a-swimmin' in the Platte, a-swimmin' and he drowned in the Platte. He swum across the river, across the broad, fast river. He swum until he couldn't swim anymore. And the young men said, "Oh, Hiram, oh, swim." And Hiram said, "I cannot swim anymore." And the young men said, "Oh, Hiram, do swim." And Hiram said, "Oh, my God, I cannot anymore." One boy took a branch and started to swim to him. The water ran too fast. The young men said, "Oh, Hiram, oh, swim." And Hiram said so loud it reached the bank, "Oh, Lord Jesus, receive my soul, for I am not anymore." So now you know. You need not ask about him anymore. It will not do you any good to trouble us about him anymore.
Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie. These words came soft and plaintively from the pallid lips of a boy who lay on his dying bed at the break of day. Oh, bury me not on the lone prairie. The words came soft and plaintively from the pallid lips of a boy who lay on his dying bed at the break of day. But we buried him there on the lone prairie, where the coyotes wail and the wind blows free, in a shallow grave just 6 by 3. We buried him there on the lone prairie.
By sun and summer, and swept by winter snows and rains. And there a little bunch of settlers had gathered on an autumn day around a homemade lumber coffin with their last respects to pay. Weary men who'd wrung a living from a hard and arid land, and beside them stood their women, faded wives with toil-worn hands. But among us was one figure who was wiry, straight, and trim. Every one among us knew him. He's the Bronco twister, Jim. Just a bunch of hardened muscle, tempered with a savage grit, and he had the reputation of a man who never quit. He had helped to build the coffin. I suppose he helped to dig the grave, and his instinct seemed to tell him how he really should behave. Well, we didn't have a preacher. The crowd was mighty slim, just two women with weak voices sing an old-time funeral hymn. That's all we had for service. The old wife was sobbing there for her husband of a lifetime, now laid away without a prayer. Then she saw the Bronco twister. She walked right up to him. She put one trembling arm around him and said, "Pray, please won't you, Jim?" You could see his figure straighten, the look of quick surprise shoot across those swarthy features in his hard, daredevil eyes. He could handle any Bronco, and he never dodged a fight. It was the first time anybody'd ever seen his face turn white, but he took his large sombrero off his rough and shaggy head. How I wish I could remember what that Bronco peeler said. No, he wasn't educated. On the range his youth was spent, but the maker of creation knew exactly what he meant. He looked over towards the mountains where the drifting shadows played. Silence must have reigned in heaven when they heard the way Jim prayed. Well, years have passed since that small funeral, that lonely graveyard lot, but it gave us all a memory and a lot of food for thought as we stood beside a coffin and some freshly broken sod with this reckless Bronco breaker, talking heart to heart with God. The prayer had finally ended, and the grave had all been filled. On his half-unbroken pony, he just rode back towards the hills, and we all watched him. We stood there. We let him ride away. No words could ever thank him. There's nothing we can say. Since we gathered at the graveyard, it's been nearly 50 years with their joys and their sorrows, with their hopes, with their fears. But I hope when I'm finished, they've laid me with the dead, maybe some old cowboy say a prayer above me, just like that Bronco peeler said. Teresa, Jordan, and Hal Cannon.